So I'm Aaron Bobick. I'm a professor at Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology, and I'm in the school of what we call interactive computing, which is a little different than most places that just have computer science. We have computing a little more nuanced and separated from that. Interactive computing is all about how computers, people in the physical world interact. I got here through a slightly circuitous route. I started as an undergraduate in math and computer science, but I ended up really interested in intelligence, both artificial and natural. My PhD's in brain and cognitive sciences. And my first real job was working for a place called SRI out in the West Coast in their artificial intelligence center. And that's where I became very interested in machine vision, computer vision, computers understanding pictures and being able to get information from the pictures. That slowly led me to the MIT Media Lab, where we did a lot of work on understanding people and cameras watching people and interactions. And somewhere late, just about 2000, I got to Georgia Tech, working within what's called our GVU Center, Graphics, Visualization, Usability. And that's an area where really there's this focus on both output from computers to people and how people interact back. And that's what then evolved into the areas of interactive computing. It's interesting because it's an industry that I'm not sure even those of us that are fundamentally aware of the technologies is really aware of it as an industry in terms of, we all know about the displays, we know about information, but the idea of, I guess if you come from the retail side and you understand the notion of signage and customer and brand and advertising, I think those folks are a lot more aware of this than the people who come from the technologies, the user interaction technologies. We see some stuff here of people doing gesture on multi-touch and waving to cameras. The technologists, we produced that technology that made that possible, but didn't really think of it in the context of digital signage. And it's an interesting time here as it moves from just being essentially converting printed signs into pixels that you can change quickly to being actually an information stream that can be tailored to whatever is going on right now, tailored to who the person is, tailored to what they've done and who's watching. So it's an interesting time in that sort of industry. And it'll be interesting to see how it moves forward. A tremendous number of vendors ranging everything from how do you hang a screen on a wall so that it doesn't fall down, all the way to how do I personalize the content for an individual who happens to have a NFC chip in their wristband. A couple of things, some on the show and also some of the material that have been promoted. For example, you have the awards that were given out last night at the banquet showed some really innovative use of large screen interaction technology. I think the move towards thinking of the content riding along standards, so whether it's HTML5 or other thing, the idea of being able to push out much more impressive content that responds dynamically, I think that's being well done. There were a couple of multi-touch things that are just beautifully executed. The company Multi-Touch themselves, they have this multi-traction, I think is the name. Very effective, engaging, rapidly responding display that really is a very cool palette on which people should be able to do some interesting things. The industry here is going to be a whole lot less about running wires and special displays. The channels are going to be relatively commoditized. Basically, it's going to be internet protocol types of communication, pushing standardized content out to devices that have relatively standard types of I/O systems that can either do some tracking or detection or whatever. So once you forget about that, as we say, the rest is just software. That is, it is about content creation, content distribution, content selection, the idea of how the content engages. Universities are full of people who want to do something relevant to and connected to either the manipulation of content, the creation of content, the distribution of content, how software engages with them. So your industry actually is just a tremendous opportunity to provide context for them to do that work. So any sort of modern computing university would be very interested in understanding what the opportunities are here. So everybody knows that Boeing Aircraft hires thousands of software engineers because it takes a lot of software to run an airplane. not everybody realizes that the entire restaurant industry is going to be dependent upon software to pump out interesting customer experiences at these quick service restaurants. They're not aware that it's software that's driving how people experience a cruise ship and a museum. So these are all opportunities for people to do a lot of software. The other thing is, and this has especially been interesting as people worried about sort of outsourcing, it's easy to outsource a specification, write me a new device driver for some new object. If you post it, people write you the code, you get it back. You can't outsource, build for me a new user experience. You have to be tightly coupled to the customer, the service provider. So in the United States, increasing the connection between people who want to do the design of interaction, the design of manipulation of software, with the end users and the providers, that works extremely well. And I think there's a lot of upside for that over the next, say, 2 decades. And that this industry would play a very interesting role there, as opposed to the traditional companies that come to universities looking to hire software engineers. I've been in this sort of interactive computing space for 20 plus years, and I hadn't really thought of digital signage as an industry. So if I haven't seen it, then some other folks haven't seen it either. But it is just sort of, it sort of just happened because all of these things came together at the same time. Now there's a time to actually try to become a little bit more driving instead of just being opportunistic. And I'll give you an example. For a while, everybody just wanted to write web code. You know, they wanted to write code because there are all these companies doing stuff over the web. People discovered, well, okay, that's all right. There's a lot of people doing that. A couple of things there. First of all, universities, we're always torn. Should we be teaching the things that industry needs now? And the short answer to that is almost always no. Because what industry needs now is different than what industry is going to need 5 years from now, especially in computing and things. Our job is to create computing professionals and design professionals who, as the languages evolve, the content creation systems evolve, the standards evolve, they can learn the new stuff and move forward. So that means we're not really teaching the current generation of content providing systems that people want folks to have the skills to. But then companies scream, but wait a minute, we need people who know this language now. So in some of the industries, they've figured out that actually the industries have to be able to pay for people to acquire the specific skills that take advantage of them already having the general skills. And you really want to do that because those specific skills, like I said, are going to change every few years. So I think the challenge is for the industry, working with the universities, to say, okay, universities, you guys are teaching this, and that provides the raw material. We as an industry maybe need to produce a little bit more, provide a little bit more opportunity for folks to get the specific skills that are needed right now. And whether that's industry-sponsored tutorials and workshops, a 3-day tutorial where you go and you get trained up on whatever new HTML5 distribution needs to be done for a cruise ship. Industries can provide those types of opportunities. It's clear that the evolution towards standards is going to be very enabling for the industry. It's also going to put some people, I won't say out of business, but it does mean the fact that they can provide the infrastructure is no longer going to be a big deal. The question is, can they make it easy for the customers to achieve what they want to achieve using these the infrastructure? It reminds me a little bit of the old first video on demand that were in hotels. They were very locked up proprietary systems, and it was very difficult for those systems to evolve because they were these locked down. If you now think of it as just content distributed over a internet-based infrastructure, the proprietary infrastructure sort of goes away. And now it's whoever can actually deliver the best content to the right place at the right time to the right people and demonstrably show that you're having an impact. And I think that changes the nature of the skills and the assets that you have to be sort of, you know, in the front of the race. Google has been doing digital signage forever because as soon as Google changed what it is you saw on your screen based upon what you had clicked on previously, They were in the game of creating a customized digital display for you. So, and frankly, the fact that they could do that and show you things that had a greater likelihood that would be of your interest is how they made that whole revenue stream work. They could go to somebody and say, look, we're not going to show your ad to everybody. We're going to show it to the people who have a high likelihood that they might care. You're trying to affect the behavior of the people who are searching on whatever they're searching for. At the end of the day, digital signage is about, in this domain, is a lot about affecting behavior. So I think Google's play in the space may be a game changer from respect to some of the folks here, but it's less of a game change for them. I mean, they've been doing it, except now, instead of it just being on your desk, it's already on your desk and your phone, now it's also on the screens that you happen to be next to. The thing that Google has, of course, is a significant head start on how to deal with big data and your data. And so I think you will see them bring to bear the various tools they have in terms of machine learning and understanding patterns of behavior, both of groups and of individuals. And that may be interesting. It may be that they will become a resource that you leverage in the same way Intel is a resource. So many of the folks here are using some of the newest Intel, not just hardware, but some of their systems for doing, Intel has a new system that allows the camera to hope to guess your gender and your age. And it's not anywhere near 100% accurate, but it doesn't have to be useful in a behavior statistical way. So a bunch of folks here are using that technology. Google has all sorts of data about all sorts of things, about all sorts of people, and they may be able to be also a provider to people who want to roll out these kind of systems to types of data that you've never had before. Facebook, of course, knows more, for many, especially millennials, knows a lot more about individuals. Presumably, if you're trying to manipulate digital signage with respect to somebody who has significant Facebook information known, Facebook becomes a content enabler as well. So I think Google and Facebook's being content enablers are important.